as some supposedly high-powered lawyer would claim, that this simply would not make sense from a legal standpoint, which we will discuss more, Mr. Chair, and from a practical perspective, since it would be an unbelievable, unimaginable amount of effort to do. Imagine, Mr. Chair, gumawa ka, pag-imbento ka ng ganyang karamihang pangalan. At let us go back to Alice Crescencio, if assuming without conceding that these are code names. Di ba pag mga code names po, ibig sabihin you somehow protect the real identity of the person. That's why you're using code names. Itatanungin ko po, ilang beses silang kumukuha ng code names sa sinasin sa isang tao? Halimbawa, si Alice Crescencio, 3 beses pumirma sa magkakaibang lugar ng ARs. How would they find out if Miss Alice Crescencio is assigned to a particular person kung 3 beses nila itong ginamit? Kung tanamang, if assuming that what they're saying is true, how sloppy they are to work and assign 3 code names to 3, same code name to 3 different persons. Mr. Chair, under item 4.15.3 of the Joint Circular, expressly requires that the SDO certify to the fact that such supporting documents for confidential funds are kept in a vault, while item 6.2.21 of the same Joint Circular requires that liquidation reports, along with supporting documents like the acknowledgement receipts, are required to be submitted in a sealed envelope. Ibig sabihin, ang sinasabi po dito sa Joint Circular, kinakailangan po na mag-certify ang SDO na may supporting documents ang confidential funds at nilalagay po sa vault para hindi po basta-basta may labas yan. At sinasabi din ho dito sa sa Joint Circular na ang liquidation reports ay dapat may supporting documents. Hindi lang po ang ARs, no? At nilalagay po yan sa sealed envelope. Ganun po kaimportante yan. Ang mga requirements po na ito, Mr. Chair, ay tiyak na alam ng mga staff po ng opisina ng Vice President at ng Department of Education. In fact, Mr. Chair, to prove that they know this circular, the requirement of this circular memorandum, sinabi po ni Ms. Gina Acosta in a certification dated 10 January of 2022, certified si Ms. Acosta that the details and supporting documents relating to use of confidential funds are kept in safe. Sinabi po niya yan, na nilalagay po nila as a way to observe what is required of them to do. This includes, Mr. Chair, the acknowledgement receipt of Ms. Mary Grace Piatos, according to her. So ang tanong ko po, Mr. Chair, kung meron pong stricto ang Joint Circular na dapat ilagay sa safe, sa vault, the Joint Circular uses the term vault, no? And uses also the terms and the phrase supporting documents. E di para saan pa kaya ang security measures na ito sa Joint Circular kung code names lang din pala ang gagamitin? Bakit ilalagay pa sa envelope kung hindi naman sigurado na totoong tao yun kasi code name pala? Sa madaling salita, Mr. Chair, what is the use of the requirement under the Joint Circular of keeping records locked in a safe and transmitting them via an envelope marked confidential funds kung hindi pala tunay na tao? Kung code names yan, pwede mo naman po nakalagay yan sa mesa. Malay mo ba natin kung sino si Alice Crescencio? Ano ba tunay niyang pangalan? Diba? If we are really to protect their identity. So why there's a need for the Joint Circular to require the agency to keep it in a safe and then have acknowledgement receipt and then put it in a sealed envelope? If these receipts, Mr. Chair, actually used?
Actually, there are 3 safeguard. Number 1, it must be sealed. May nakalagay na confidential at dapat nakalagay sa vault.
Yes. And those 3 requirements were already confirmed by Ms. Gina Acosta, Mr. Chair, in the previous hearing. Mr. Chair, again, let me continue. If these receipts actually use code names, what is the point locking it in a safe, again, and secure the vault and secure it in the vault? When the details therein have already been obscured or changed, pinalitan na hindi niya tunay na identity. Halimbawa, si Congressman Paulo Ortega, ang kanyang codename ay si Magneto. Pwede naman dyan nakalagay dyan. Malay ba natin na si Magneto pala si Congressman Paulo Ortega. Mr. Chair, the interpretation offered by those who claim that code names can be used is patently absurd. I'm sorry to say this. And we in government, Mr. Chair, cannot and should not dabble with the absurd. Hindi dapat ito biro, hindi biro ang pinag-uusapan dito. Hindi lang naglalaro dito, Mr. Chair. Seryosong bagay po ito. Kaya nga po may joint circular kasi seryoso po ang gobyerno kung paano po nila nilalagay ang criteria kung paano gastusin po ang pondo ng taong bayan, ang pera ng ating mga kababayan. So hindi po ito dapat laro-laro at hindi po lang dapat itago sa mga code names. Furthermore, Mr. Chair, just because the issue involves confidential funds doesn't mean we can ignore, exploit, and essentially invent acknowledgement receipts, which under the joint circular are proof of payment. Paano po mapoprove na itong isang tao na ito, nagangalang ganito, ay nakatanggap dahil siya informant, kung ang nilalagay lang ho natin na acknowledgement receipts ay hindi niya pangalan or code name lang, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. How can we then confirm, especially COA, Mr. Chair, that the confidential fund actually went to the right person for the stated purpose if the amount can be claimed with a code name? Mr. Chair, how can the Commission audit ensure that the agency who utilized confidential funds actually utilized it for its actual stated purpose? As allowing a code name, Mr. Chair, to me, just allows this, Mr. Chair, to be prone to abuse, but just writing any name and calling it as such, Mr. Chair. And when accountability is required from the agency of the government, the inquiry will be brushed aside only on the basis of supposed confidentiality. Ganun po eh. So we are actually weakening not only COA, but even this committee, the inherent right of this committee to exercise its oversight function. Para lang ho, Mr. Chair, to me, para lang ho itong biro-biro lamang lang. So I think those are the things that we need to consider and probably to propose a bill that would really secure the identity of the informants and as well as to prove that those informants really do receive the payments. Ilan lang po, Mr. Chairman, ito sa mga anomalyang napansin natin sa ating pag-imbestiga, sa mga documentary evidences of payment na isinumite ng Office of the Vice President at ng Department of Education para di umano'y magpapatunay sa paggamit ng confidential expenses nito. Sa aking mga kababayan, to my fellow Filipinos, I would wish that this committee's inquiry in aid of legislation with regard to the issues on confidential funds surrounding OVP and DepEd was understood. Pinapanalangin ko po, Mr. Chair, na maintindihan ito ang trabaho po natin at ginagawa po natin dito sa committee nito. Pinapanalangin ko na maintindihan ito ng ating mga kababayan. Dahil hindi po ito pondo ng isang taong pinag-uusapan. Hindi po biro ang pinag-uusapan dito. Hindi po madali ang mga na-involved na tao po dito. Ito po ang pinag-uusapan natin ay pondo po nila. Pera po ng taong bayan. And we want to make sure that whatever manners these funds are spent and utilized, it should ultimately be for the goal or objective of making their lives better. If we, Mr. Chair, as lawmakers, do not adhere to our duty to inquire with resource speakers which are aimed at addressing gaps in the law, we would not be able to pass bills to eventually become law to address these very gaps which are prone to abuse. Ang ginagawa po natin dito, at kung hindi natin ginagawa at ine-exercise ang ating oversight function, paano po tayo makakagawa ng batas para protektahan ang pera ng ating mga kababayan? This is exactly what we, Mr. Chair, this committee, as lawmakers, as legislators have done here. And this is the primary reason of why we have undergone numerous hearings in our inquiry in aid of legislation with regard to confidential funds without fear or favor. Mr. Chair, in closing, other than our goal of hopefully passing a bill to address these gaps in the law surrounding confidential funds, so that this may not be abused again by those in power. We should not forget who facilitated this abuse, Mr. Chair. Sabi ko nga, hindi po madali itong investigasyon na ito dahil ang involved po ay matataas na opisyal ng ating gobyerno. There's only one person, Mr. Chair, in the middle of the issues surrounding the anomalous utilization of confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education. Ang tinuturo po ng lahat na naging bisita po natin dito sa committee ito. The very last invitees na nag-appear po sa committee ito, ang Special Disbursement Officers ng Department of Education nung kapanahunan po niya at ng Office of the Vice President. Ito po yung inatasan under the Joint Circular Memorandum nung pag-disburse, paggamit ng confidential funds. Sila lang po ang merong kapangyarihan na mag-disburse at mag-implement nitong pondo na ito